Good day, everybody. I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 2 English lesson on action verbs. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts, grade 2, and then scroll down up until we get to the chapter of action verbs. And our chapter is action verb. Our subject is English language arts. We're doing English language arts, grade 2, and we're going to use action verbs and identify action verbs. All right. So an action verb, right? An action verb, it tells you what a noun does. So it tells us what the noun does. And remember, a noun, it either names a person, an animal, a place, or a thing. That is a noun. And if we look at an example, we can say she ate an apple. So she is our noun. So now the question is, what did she do? It says she ate an apple. What did she do? And if we look at what the verb is, right, that tells us what she did, then we can say ate because it tells us what the person did. And if you look at another example, right? Another example say we smile. We is our noun. So now the question is, what are we doing? Because remember, an action verb, it tells us what the noun does. So what are we doing? So basically, this is our action verbs, right? And the action verbs, it tells us what the noun does, right? And we say the noun is basically, it tells us either what the person, animal, or thing does. All right, so now we're going to aplusstudents.ca, and there we are going to also find out more about action verbs as well as look at more examples of action verbs. All right, so now we're going to aplusstudents.ca. Smile is our verb. So we're going to use our action verbs, right? And we say that an action verb, it tells us what a noun does. And we said she ate an apple, and ate is our noun, our verb that tells us what she is doing. And we also have another example that says we smile. And smile tells us what we are doing. Right? And with action verbs, right? With action verbs, we have words like, they we already made a mention of ate. We have words like run or runs. We have smile. We have walk, stand, play, laugh, read, cry. When you ride, when you think, or when you jump. Those are all action verbs, right? Can you think of more action verbs? I made an example of a few. Where I said walk and run and stand and cry and read. If you think of something that you are doing now, what is something that you're doing now? Because that is the action that you're doing. Like what I'm doing now is I'm talking, right? I talk. But now, what are you doing? that shows the action. Remember, read is also an action. It tells us you're doing something. So even thinking, listening, that is also an action that you are doing. Because since I'm talking and then you're listening, so that is also an action verb. All right. So we say that ate is an action verb. We say walk is an action verb. Run or runs is an action verb. We have stand, jump, because this is something that people are doing or that you are doing. Cry is an action verb. To think is an action verb. When you listen, you are doing something. To play, you are doing something. Ride. To laugh, that is an action verb. And even to read is an action verb. And these are but a few examples of action verbs, right? Even to sing, and what I'm doing now, talk, right? These are all action verbs. And if we look at our sentence, right? If we refer to one person doing something, and then our action verb is going to end in an S, because it means that our noun is singular, referring to one person or thing. So our verb is going to end in S. And if we make mention of more than one person doing something, and then our action verb is not going to end in S. So if we look at that sentence, right, our sentence says, Abby, do we say Abby run faster than she used to? Or do we say Abby runs faster than she used to? We need to choose the correct action verb. Is it run or runs? So we need to choose the correct action verb. Do we say run or do we say runs? And if we were to choose our correct action verb, and then we can say Abby runs because we are referring to one person doing something. So we say Abby runs faster than she used to. All right. All right. If we look at the next one, here it says Haley. We need to use the word walk. So we can say in the past tense, Haley walked down the wall with Eric. All right, let's look at the next one. Erica, right? Referring to one person. So do we say Erica pits or Erica pit her cat every day? We need to choose the correct action verb. Do we say she pit or pits her cat every day? And if we were to choose the correct one, we would say Erica pits. Because remember, we said that our verb ends with an S if one person does something. So we say Erica pets her cat every day. All right, so now we're going to our test. Right, we're going to our test where we are going to complete the sentence with the action verb. It says, Miss Maxwell. Do we say Miss Maxwell time in the children's library or Miss Maxwell works in the children's library? We need to choose the correct verb. Something that Miss Maxwell does. And if we were to choose the correct one, yes, we can say Miss Maxwell works in the children's library. So well done. Works is correct. Well done. Philip, do we say Philip basketball higher than anyone else on the team, or Philip jumps higher than anyone on the team? We need to choose the correct verb, action verb. So basketball or jumps. We need to choose the correct action verb. All right. And if we choose the correct one, we can say Philip jumps higher than anyone else on the team. So jumps is correct. The next one says Nina. Do we say Nina prize games with her sister? Or do we say Nina played games with her sister? We need to choose the correct action verb that tells us what Nina does. And if we were to choose the correct one, we would say Nina played, because it's something that Nina does. Played games with her sister. And played is correct. Now we're going to the next one. The next one says, the lady laughed when she won the prize, or do we say the lady first when she won the prize? Laughed or first? What is our correct action verb? And the lady, we can say, the lady laughed when she won the prize. So laughed is our action verb. All right, the next one says, my sister. Do we say my sister bit the apple pie into 8 pieces, or my sister cuts the apple pie into 8 pieces? We need to choose the correct action verb. So, do we say the lady best or the lady cuts? And we can say, my sister cuts the apple pie into 8 pieces. Because remember, if you want 8 pieces, you need to cut it, right? So cuts is correct. Because cuts is our action verb, it tells us what my sister does. All right. So now we're going to identify action verbs. We had to use action verbs. Now we're going to identify action verbs within our sentences. And once again, we see an action verb, it tells us what the noun does. And I made mention that action verbs are different things, right? It's plays, it's runs, it's jump, it's things that you're doing. Sings, dance, laugh, cry. You listen, that is all action verbs. So now we're going to read the sentence and we're going to identify our action verb within that sentence. It says here, my sister builds toy airplanes. My sister builds toy airplanes. We need to choose the action that my sister does. All right. And if we were to underline or identify our action verb within the sentence, telling us what my sister does, then we can say builds is our verb or is our action verb, and it tells us what my sister does. All right. If we go on to the next one, it says Mr. Kirby smiles in the lake every day. Mr. Kirby, swims, not smiles, swims in the lake every day. So Mr. Kirby swims in the lake every day. We need to identify our action verb within that sentence. And if we were to choose or underline our action verb within that sentence, we can say Mr. Kirby swims in the lake every day. So swims is the action that Mr. Kirby does. All right, so swims is correct. And then the last one before we go to our test. It says dad pulls weeds in the garden. So dad pulls weeds in the garden. We need to choose our correct action verb. That tells us what dad does. And if we were to identify our action verb that tells us what dad does, then we can say pulls is what dad does. Right? All right, so now we're going to our test where we are going to identify action verbs. And it says Eva buttoned her coat. Eva buttoned her coat. We need to identify the action verb. Is it buttoned or is it coat? All right, and if we choose the correct action verb, we can say Eva buttoned her coat. So button is our correct action verb. All right, so buttoned is correct. Nicole pets the cat. Nicole pets the cat. Is it pets or is it cat? Our correct action verb. Pets or cat. And if we choose the correct one, we will say pets is something that Nicole does. So pets is something that Nicole does. And if we choose the correct answer, we can say watered the garden. Dad watered the garden. All right. Some kinds of ants bite. Some kinds of ants bite. We need to choose the action. Is it ants or is it bite? All right, so we can say some kinds of ants bite. So bite is our correct answer. And the last one, we can say our dog Penny barks at Tess. Our dog Penny barks at Tess. Is it dog or is it barks? And if we choose the last one, we can say our dog Penny barks at Tess. So barks is our correct answer. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on action verbs. We said action verbs, it tells us what the noun does, right? It's the action that the noun does. And a noun can either refer to as people, animals, or things, right? So those are nouns, and it tells us what the person or thing does. All right, so this is the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, grade twos, and I hope you're going to have a good weekend further. Goodbye.